But it's straight up noon. We want to make good use of everybody's time. So we'll go ahead and get started on our book discussion. We are discussing Oh Great One by David Novak. It's a fairly easy and entertaining read. I think you can probably read it in about 3 hours total. And but a great resource. And one of the reasons we picked that is that at the University of Missouri, David Novak endowed a leadership center there. It's called the Novak Leadership Center. And that's been in place for a year or more. And we hope to be doing more leadership activities with that center. And as one of the reasons, this was a good book to pick and something that maybe had value in personal life and business life as well. So we do have a discussion guide that's prepared. It's on our website. If you've accessed that, I know that everybody here has a copy of that discussion guide. And so we'll just go ahead and get started and follow through that guide. And hopefully everybody can hear us, anybody that joins us from afar. Who is your OGO? If you read the book, you know what an OGO is. And who would you say is your OGO? Anybody? You have an OGO? Feel free to put it in comments if you're watching on Facebook, but those that are live here get to talk.
Well, I don't think it can be limited to just one person. There's many people in my life that have been great ones.
All right. It's a good answer.
It's the recognition that you have and what they mean to you.
All right. That's fair.
I have the same. I was thinking of different ones throughout different periods of my life, so I couldn't have just one single person. And sometimes it varies depending on the type of project or role I was in at the time. And so, I always felt the same way. I didn't have one specific one. I guess I felt lucky because when I thought about it, I thought I had lots of different OGOs. And, once I started thinking about all of them, I thought, I'm really lucky to have so many great people.
Initially I was kind of thinking that along like a business sense maybe, and so I put Jack Stack because of his example with Great Game of Business and SRC. But you're right, it applies in personal situations and business. And if you've been working long, you've probably had several OGOs that have been an encouragement person. Was there what person has had the biggest impact on your life and why? Is there someone you would tag individually as having the biggest impact? I have separate answers for this regarding personal or professional. Not sure which one to pick really, but I might say that my history teachers in school, which would have been Ann Googe and Gary Whitus and Alan Schmidt, I would say they were my OGOs at that time because of the influence on research and writing and interest in history. And I might also say my grandfather, Orlis Farmer, who had a 8th grade education but was a hard worker and thrifty and helped fund my college education. So because he believed in gaining an education. So if it hadn't been for him, I might not have been able to go to college. So I call him one of my OGOs as well. Anybody else?
I felt the same. I had several different, family members, but then also educators, professors. I was thinking I still have a couple of undergraduate professors. It's been a long time since I've been in their classroom who I'm still in touch with because they were so just phenomenal.
Yes.
They were there was a husband and wife couple on the campus of Missouri Western way back in the day, and now they're in Arcadia, California, living out there for a long time at Humboldt teaching. But they made such an impact in my life. But they were the kind of couple who taught in different buildings, but I had them both, and they just absolutely refused to let any student fail, or they would kind of put a fire under students so many times, and they kind of held people to a higher standard, and they were really kind of hard on lots of their students who they knew well, which I'm not sure I totally appreciated at the time, but looking back, I think I really, that was really, really great. So, and there are some facets of that. I think I only got some of those experiences a little bit because it was a smaller campus. I don't know, maybe if you were in a class that was much, much larger, professor didn't have that time to give to a smaller group, but this couple did. They really went above and beyond, to kind of mentor. And they didn't have to, you know what I mean? I think looking back, they did a lot of things that I'm sure weren't necessarily required for their faculty status. So.
Sensing a theme here about teachers.
I am too. I would have to say the same, that I had educators in my younger years that were quite influential in my life, even into adulthood. And then as I, of course, have become an adult and followed a career path, I seem to have a lot of interaction and support from the educators I've worked with.
Yeah. Well, they invested in you and with their teaching, and that's something we can aspire to do ourselves, invest in others. I will say it's also important that we invest in ourselves. And an easy way to do that is to read a good leadership book like Oh Great One and participate in some book discussions. It's a great way to invest in yourself and learn some new things. So we hear about teachers here that have been great influences and OGO, and it sounds like that's meant a lot to both of you, has been a influence. But so turn the tables here a little bit. Who's OGO? And of course, if you've read the book, you know that stands for Oh Great One, and the OGO jar that was used for recognition. So whose OGO are you? Are you a mentor or a great influence to someone else? What do you think?
When we all hope that we are. But I would have to say that that's something that I think about often, is how to give back to the people that I work with, including my children and their friends, especially the school district, the community. But individually, you meet people along the way, and you have the opportunity to share with them your skills and expertise, and hopefully you can be a shining light in their life too.
Yeah. I don't know, Aaron, what are you thinking that? Have you been good influence in that area? You think you're somebody's OGO?
I've had a really great opportunity to grow lots of new librarians, professional librarians. I've had lots of staff members who came in working part-time for the library district and were actually majoring in other areas, but ended up, with lots of guidance and mentoring, deciding that that's what they wanted to do professionally. And that's just been one of my favorite things in the world. I just get so much joy out of that when a staff member comes to me and says, I've been thinking about this for a while and I'm working on this skill set or that, and I decided to go to library school, and being able to support them through that process. It's just so much fun. The only downside for me is often, when you get to help grow that, then that person grows some wings and they take off and go kind of on their own, and that's just really fun. I really enjoyed that a lot. And then I'm proud to say, as a former Peace Corps volunteer, I've definitely worked with lots of folks over the years who, if they mentioned they were thinking about joining the Peace Corps, giving them lots of resources and encouragement, and had several folks end up actually joining the Peace Corps. And so I always get really excited about that. So those two for sure. That's really fun.
Yeah, those are great examples of that. I think if I'm going to be honest in answering the question, I would have to say I'm not sure. I've not been very intentional in that area. I think that requires some intentionality and taking the time to develop a relationship and a mentorship, to be pretty intentional. But if I would say that I would hope that at least my children would say that I'm their OGO. That would be my hope. So we'll, I don't know about others. I know we have some others that have joined us on Facebook too, and you're welcome to type in the comment sections about whose OGO you are, or other comments, and we'll talk about them here in the group as well. I'll share your comments. So sounds like some of us have been intentional in that area and helping in mentorships. What if I could have that kind of effect on someone else's career? And I think Aaron mentioned that a little bit about influencing people with Peace Corps and doing that with librarians that are coming up, encouraging them in their profession. I think this book helps me kind of realize that really small gestures can add up. Small moments of time, just taking time to listen to people and getting to know them. Don't just give a compliment on social media. Do it face to face, and how important that is, and making it very, very personal. That's an important part of it too. Anything else you do? I pick on Amy specifically, maybe that that can affect someone else's career. Things that you've seen, or maybe something somebody's done for you, maybe.
Well, you said something that was really important that I think about often, is those people that we do recognize, not just on social media, but in person. It makes me think that I should spend a little extra time writing some thank you notes and investing in those people. And that will help me be more prepared to invest in someone else and spend the extra time. But I think in the profession that we have at the University of Missouri Extension, that we have lots of opportunities to invest in people's careers. That's what we do. And so I think making that more intentional, I've often thought, how do you make that more intentional? You have people that attend workshops and programs, and they're looking to improve their careers, or maybe they're searching for new jobs and they're looking to grow their expertise. And how can I make that more intentional to directly affect an individual's career? I think I'll put more thought into that.
You're right about thank you notes. That's a lost art, isn't it? A handwritten thank you note. I think I got one of those last year, but I kept it for quite a while because that was meaningful. You knew somebody really invested some time in doing that. It's important.
It is important, but it's also enjoyable for the person writing it.
Yeah, yeah. And enjoyable. I mean, what if you can have that kind of effect on someone else's life? But when we talked about people who had been our OGO and it influenced our life, what if we can have that type of influence on somebody else? That would feel pretty good.
It would.
That'd be a big deal.
I think that's one of the best themes of the whole book, though, is to find as many opportunities as possible to say thank you, so many times. I really liked that in the book because, and as I mentioned with you, working through all volunteer nonprofit organization outside the district, so many different committees and things like that, and so many different people working on really, bigger projects or smaller things and stuff. And I love that because I try to always do that with every single person, whether I get to connect with them several times over a calendar year or maybe just that one time. I try really hard to really keep saying, thank you so much for working on this. Thanks for helping with this. And I think this book is a really good reminder of that. I was thinking if wasn't there one gentleman in the book who had worked for 40 years or something, and he never realized how much his coworkers thought that his ideas and the things that he brought in were so amazing, and he just literally, he said, no one ever told me that. No one ever told me that. I thought, oh no. So we need to find a way to tell people that.
I think they call him Bob in the book, Oh Great One. But I can tell you from having read ahead to our next book, which is we're going to start a 4-part discussion on taking people with you in January. And that's a real person. David Novak interacted with that person, I think at one of the bottlers, right? Was it Pepsi? But he'd been there like 37 years. And really the story that he details is really very, very different product, but same type of thing that's talked about here in Oh Great One, that nobody had really ever told him that. And so what a waste. It's a good reminder for us not to let that happen in our own sphere of influence. And being a positive influence on somebody's life can have tremendous impact, and can also impact us as well. And that final question, what would that mean to me? Well, a positive word well spoken is powerful. And actually, I had written down here, it reminds me of Proverbs 25:11. A word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in settings of silver. It means a word of counsel or a word that's kindly spoken is especially beautiful, like fine fruit in a silver basket. And that's a pretty powerful image. It can be a powerful influence. And just positive words to coworkers, to employees. And to do that, you kind of have to be more attentive to what they are doing, you know, to keep a mental note of what deserves some recognition. Well, about the book specifically, and if you're watching on Facebook, you can comment and join in our discussion that way. Did you like the book, and why? What did you enjoy about the book? Aaron and Amy are here in person, so they get to do most of the talking.
Well, I liked it specifically in regards to what Aaron said in Novak's use of stories to really drive home the concept. The very simple, there's 10 simple principles, and he supported those principles by stories that you could really relate to, and you could see how impactful it was for the individuals that he highlighted.
It's a little easy. It certainly makes it easier to read in the narrative, I thought. And they all had great examples with them.
I liked the courage in the book.
Courage.
So forthcoming about the courage that it takes sometimes to look at a situation or look at, in this case, it was a facility and the way it looked and the way it was operating, and say, I know there's a lot of work needed here. There's obviously things we need to fix. And then, but even going farther than that and saying, but I'm really nervous that I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can pull this off, and I need you all to do this with me. Come with me on this journey and do this. And I just think that takes a lot of courage. Like, he has an opening chapter about describing how the building looks so different, and it looked kind of decrepit, and it just didn't look like this welcoming, happy, place to be. And that's really hard. And I think that's one of the more difficult things about management, is being able to step back and say, I'm not sure exactly how to fix this, but I have some ideas, and I have some great folks who are on this journey with me. We're going to try to figure it out, and we're going to try our very best, and starting at that and then going forward. That was a really insurmountable task, and like he even mentions, like at that point when he's looking at this company and he's building, he knows there's that little voice inside his head saying, the easy thing I could do right now is just close this down and run away, right? He knew he had that little voice, but thankfully he had the bigger voice saying, no, you need to get down and get to work, because there's a really good chance you could make this amazing, but it's going to take a lot of work, that kind of thing. I think we all grapple with that, with different projects, big or small.
Yes. Well, most of the good things do take time and effort, right?
They do.
And investment.
And it might fail a couple times, or little things along the way might fail, and you just have to kind of keep plugging away.
Well, one of the things that comes out clear in that book is through the use of recognition, recognizing those that are doing good work. You're actually inspiring people to continue being innovative and coming up with good ideas. That's part of what made the successful turnaround of the company possible, because people felt like what they were doing mattered and what they were saying mattered. They spoke up as a result. I like that aspect. Let's see. Hey, I do like the book. It is a narrative style, so it is easy to really read. I do like the real life experiences, and that's good. And even as I'm reading it, I'm thinking, that might be something that I should be doing in this setting or that setting. So I think there's ways to apply it to ourselves. A story is not often a genre used for business leadership books. Do you think it works here? And if so, why or why not? Because the book is written as a narrative. Like we said, I think I heard both of you mention that you felt like it added a lot of examples. Maybe by doing the narrative, he could do more real-world examples, but change the names.
It made you feel like you knew them. It was
Yes.
easier to read, and I remembered a lot more, and was able to relate to that personally, and thinking about my own colleagues and friends and neighbors and family, because it made me feel like I knew those people.
That's a good point. Maybe by having them carry on throughout the whole story, you have that connection that causes you to see it and remember it in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like Amy's a future librarian, Erin. That was pretty literarily insightful there, I thought.
I'm not, but it is about my joy and excitement about being engaged with librarians, because they are very special people.
It's very readable. Like you said, you can get through it pretty fast. It's straightforward. I love the narrative style, but there's lots of little examples along the way that are peppered through that any field that you're in, I think you could look at and find little nuggets that would really work for you.
I've actually had several people mention to me that they've read the book, and at least one specifically over the weekend, about how they were going to incorporate it into their place of business with some very specific examples. So it's caused people to think about it in that way. Sam Schneider has posted a couple of comments that I'll share. He said, I would say that every organization should set up a plan in which people feel recognized for accomplishments, even if it's just a plaque for perfect attendance, some sort of recognition. And he says, what I liked about the book was the way that Jeff was able to take the negative feedback he got from his executive team and turn it into positive ideas. Ooh, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, he got a lot of pushback. And I think that's one of the questions later on. Did the pushback seem realistic, or did that feel fictional? Or did you feel like the pushback was realistic? Stumbling blocks is what we call them on the discussion guide. I felt like they were all legitimate and could have ended the whole push without Jeff's commitment to continue. It required some leadership on his part, for sure, to motivate people and kind of push back. Some of that may depend on the size of the staff. If you're like 4 or 5 people, then monthly recognition could be a little trite, or could come across that way maybe. So it may depend a little bit on your organization. But I thought like the stumbling blocks that people were putting up were legitimate. I mean, were things that you would commonly hear. Saying it was too fluffy, or that we're all adults, we don't really need that. But I think most adults really, even if they don't want to stand up in front of a crowd and be introduced or made to speak, I think people enjoy being appreciated. They need to know they're appreciated.
What came to mind when I was reading that and talking about it being fluffy stuff, the recognition, that there's so many other ways to recognize people. And memorializing that recognition in history sometimes can be just as kind, and can't think of the word, but it can be even more impactful for someone. So recently, ESP, the national organization, recognized one of their longtime members by starting a scholarship in her name.
Okay.
And so when I was reading that and thinking, yeah, I can see how they would say that's fluffy stuff, it's not the hard skills, maybe a different kind of recognition or approach to recognition, where it's not directly to that person or internalized within the organization, but memorializing them in a historical way where it will always be referred back to them, would be a nice gesture.
Yes. Kind of depends on the culture of your organization, maybe a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Why you do that?
I was thinking, I had to find it in here. It's page 88 and 89. This is when Jeff was meeting with Manuel about kind of his approach to things and how things were going. He was kind of checking in with all these different teams, and he'd kind of been doing some observing, and this is at the point where Manuel kind of shares really what's happening for him. And this is a great reminder to me. He shared that it wasn't that he didn't want to celebrate their smaller successes. It's just that he felt so overburdened by needing to turn the bigger picture of the company around that he almost felt like it wasn't okay for them to stop and recognize the smaller little successes that were happening, because he felt like, I guess we can't celebrate that because ultimately this company still isn't turned around. So I think that's an incredible reminder that maybe sometimes we don't actually think of this. We always think of like recognizing people when a project's been amazingly successful, but maybe we need to recognize people when you're facing an insurmountable, odd and things aren't going well. Like actually maybe when your team is tanking on a project or you're having to reconfigure things, maybe that's actually when you should identify some smaller successes in there that are happening. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. He says he learned, from that too. That kind of made me think, oh my gosh, yeah. So maybe just not thinking of recognition as something we only do when it's bright and sunny outside. Maybe we need to focus on recognition even when it's dark and stormy and things aren't going well.
It's a great point.
Do that,
And they can add up and turn the tide.
Yeah.
It's a good insight, Aaron. I thought it was interesting that he used a family-led toy company as a business to write about. Think there was any particular reason for doing it that way? And I wondered if, with it being a family-owned business, maybe that kind of cut out some of the difficulties that might exist if you had to navigate a big hierarchy or a board or stockholders or something. Maybe it helped keep the story a little more relatable, and certainly makes it relatable to small businesses, most of which are family-owned. I think there's still valuable principles in here. So we've mentioned a few of the people in the book, Adam, and we've mentioned Manuel already. Any of the people in the book remind you of any coworkers? And careful, Amy.
I would say yes. I saw facets of myself and coworkers and lots of different examples. And I was thinking about the different things you go through when you're working on long-term projects or really big projects, things that they start but not complete themselves for sometimes even several years. You kind of go through different spurts and growths along the way. Sometimes you feel like you're stuck at neutral, and other times you feel like it's going so fast you can't really keep up with it. And so there were definitely different folks in here I looked at and I thought, oh, that reminds me of that person when they were at this part of that project, or this is how, so yeah, definitely. I think you can kind of see yourself in every one of the characters, good or bad, I
thought Adam was an interesting character, the chief legal officer. Great example of someone who may have had the skills for the job but no longer fits with the culture. And I've heard that said before, that most firings or dismissals are more culture related and maybe personality related sometimes than even skill related. But several of the other characters I thought reminded me of somebody I've worked with over my career at different places. They seemed realistic, at least, for sure. So what do you think of Jeff as a leader? Was he a believable character? Did he seem genuine? Did he remind you of anybody you knew? I don't think anybody's going to shut the conference call off. I don't think anybody's going to join that way. I really liked his arguments for doing this, for doing recognition, and how important it is to employees, especially in a setting where they cannot get a pay raise. Trying to help change the culture, maybe to be more and making it more recognition focused, also making it more team. I think that helps build the team and encourages innovation and new ideas. It's not just a waste of time or money to do it, because it does get people to work harder and work better as a team and come up with new and innovative ideas. If you can do something to encourage that, that's a good thing. He was direct with department leaders. There were times when there was problems. I think sometimes some leaders are maybe a little too indirect and the message doesn't get through. Well, number 9, can you think of a successful idea that came from an unexpected source?
That really hit home with me, because I have recognized over the years that a great idea isn't sometimes great right that moment. But later on, when the conditions and the situation is correct, it works. And many times we don't go back to that person that we didn't expect the idea from and say, now is the right time to start working on this. And I've seen that happen recently, where there were some great suggestions, but the team we were working with just wasn't at a place where we could take that on. But it kind of festered in the back of our mind, and it was still there, and it's even been 2 or 3 years. But now we've grown as a group to the point where we can put that suggestion or that idea into practice.
That's a good example.
Yeah, I agree. I think timing is very important, and it's really vital for an organization to keep an open mind about ideas, even if they get a great one, but they're not able to run with it at that point in time. But to just find a way to kind of keep that, because it may be that it's just not that day for it, but maybe later on it is. We had something like that happen specifically in our district, where we had something that had been an idea several times, but because of timing and resources and things, it just wasn't ready to hatch. But luckily, we didn't forget about it, and we all kept sort of going, okay, we're gonna keep going back to this. We have something that we use in our administration called project hoppers. And project hoppers are sometimes a topic or very specific idea of something that maybe we can't totally develop right at this moment, or maybe we need to discuss it some more. But we're not implementing it, but we're gonna research it a little bit more and discuss it more. And sometimes that part happens, and it may sit there for a while. I mean, it really might be 2 years later before the timing and the resources are exactly right to finally go, hey, I think we can do that now, But I think the recognition part that's really important is making sure that even if that project ends up belonging to a totally different team, I think it's really important to go back to some of the original people who suggested the very first ideas. I think it's really great to go back to them and be like, I'm so glad you had the courage to suggest that what you thought was a harebrained idea, because even though it's 4 years later now, look what we've done with it. Because they may not be the ones ultimately later on to have their hands in it, but I think it's important to recognize them later for it, So. And that longevity piece, it takes a long time. That is the only downside of the book, and it's not a complaint I have with the book, but it does read really quick and it wraps up very quickly. But one of the harder things that all of us face is sometimes there are projects and developments, whether it's in culture, recognition, and things like that, that really, really do take a very long time. One of the things that I liked in the book, but I wasn't sure was authentic enough for me, is I think sometimes with those trust relationships, especially for Jeff, the way he came in, a lot of these people didn't know him. It may take quite a bit longer for some departments or people to build that same level of trust. So it just depends. So, that part. So I thought, well, it's like this, but it might take several years.
Yeah.
Just,
as opposed to taking 6 months,
6 months
for the whole book. Yeah, that's a pretty quick turnaround.
Yeah, it's a pretty quick turnaround.
But one of the advantages, I guess one of the reasons it could occur that way in a family-owned business is you can hire and fire people.
Yes.
That's a pretty big motivator. Sometimes you end up in a large organization where they're trying to change the culture, talk with people, and it's kind of like, I've got tenure, I'll be here no matter what, or, you know, or
you might have some departments that are excited about and ready to step up and work with it, but you might have others that are a little bit more reticent and maybe will take a little longer to come to the table fully. So it just depends.
be a little different dynamic in the structure.
Yeah. So I'd say get excited about his 6-month window, but don't be discouraged if it takes much longer. Like, that's okay. Keep at it.
I'd say if I had a criticism, it would probably be, I'm not sure that recognition is the only tool to turn an organization around. I mean, I think it's a great tool. I think the book is a great book and a great example, but I guess I feel like maybe it's more like one of the tools in the toolbox. Maybe it's the one you go to first. It may be one of the primary ones, but I think there's some other ones to maybe include in the leadership toolbox, not just, if I just go in and just recognize everything, everybody's going to come out hunky-dory.
Yeah.
And of course, he exhibited a lot of leadership skills in the way he interacted with people. So that shows it's more than just recognition. But
they allude a little bit to leveraging in this. So the other part of the recognition piece is maybe being able to leverage resources in certain directions. Maybe an even greater tool sometimes for our department than, like you said, here's a certificate saying you're awesome. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, you might have a department that feels like, I don't want the paper certificate that says I'm awesome, but if you could leverage some things to make these things work better in our department, for them that may be far greater. You know, it just varies. So, but he talks a little bit about leveraging resources. Of course, he wielded a lot of power to be able to go in and change things and
yes.
sort of, I don't want to kind of wave his wand, you know what I mean? So I was a little envious of some parts of that because,
yes.
I mean, I think the majority of us are in roles where, you know, we try to find little pockets that we can improve things, but we aren't necessarily the ones who are able to just come in and go, we're just gonna, you know, change all of this and stuff. So that sort of thing too.
One of the other tools, I think, is this whole concept of priorities. I read a book recently called Crazy Busy, and we're talking about that around our office a little bit, about not so much time management, but priority management and setting priorities. And I saw elements of that through the book too. I was reminded how important priorities are. I've been reminded of that this week, actually, as I've been derailed a few times on projects that were unexpected. They take bigger blocks of time than I had planned. So you can set your priorities. It doesn't mean you always get to stick with them, I guess, but
we had a
plan for it.
That our administrator gave us, and it sounded a little easy in theory, but then he made us promise that we would all work on it. And he works with all our branch managers, but he sent us an article about multitasking, and we all, you know, multitask a lot, as I say to David with his conference call and his Facebook Live, and talking to people in person. But he just encouraged us for, I think it was a solid week, to never work on more than one thing at once, right? So you had to open the one thing, and the idea was we're supposed to tell yourself, okay, really, how much time do I have to commit to this today? Let's just say you decided I can spend 10 minutes on this. You had to hold yourself to it, and you couldn't do anything else during that 10 minutes, right? So if while you're working on that in the 10 minutes, if that email from the coworker you're waiting on pops up, you can't touch it because you said you were going to do 10 full minutes on this other thing uninterrupted. It was really hard for me. It was so difficult, but it was a wonderful exercise. It was a really good exercise in mindfulness, and kind of, because we were asking ourselves, if you spread out 15 different things and you keep going back and forth between all of them, are you really, you know, devoting really the full mindset to every single piece that you need to, or is it taking twice as long because you're fidgeting back and forth between them? And there are some times when, because of deadlines, you just have to function that way. You have to go through lots of different things. But I thought it was a really great exercise.
Yeah.
And he did encourage us to check our email less. I failed horribly at that, and I will continue to work at that. But I'm a constant email checker. So yeah.
We're really not made to multitask very well. I mean, I know a lot of people that say they can, but I was reminded once of some research that was done about refocusing our attention. So if you're working on a project and you get somebody walks into your office and talks to you, then on average it takes us 8 minutes to refocus and get back to where we were on what we were working on. That's a lot of time.
That's what this article addressed. And
so if I'm always looking at text messages like what I just got, see, there we go. Where was I again? We really can't refocus the way we feel like we can. I had that conversation with some teenagers who try to do homework and text at the same time. That's not really humanly possible. So what is one change you would make at your organization if you could? One change at your organization from what you've read here. Sam Schneider posted and asked a question, does Greene County Extension have an annual recognition plan? We don't have a recognition plan. There are some recognitions that the Extension Council gives called the Leaders Honor Roll, which recognizes people who have been long-term partners in programming and various projects. So we do recognize people in that way. I think 4-H recognizes volunteers and lots of different things. Extension recognizes some staff at a statewide level, but like at the county office, I think I'd have to say no. We certainly don't have a plan, but there's sometimes some recognition that takes place, but not as described in the book, or certainly not following those 10 principles. So it's an area that can be improved.
And recently, we've worked on that recognition at the Greene County office some. And so we've kick-started it, and it's a good opportunity for us to continue working on that.
We've been working at nominating some people for awards and things, yes.
And even if we don't get the award, the nomination itself was recognition.
Yeah. But even in the book, we see other ways of doing recognition. Like we were talking earlier before we began this about birthdays at an organization and how different organizations do that and things. And sometimes you think, I've been some places where they would actually plan, something in the afternoon on birthdays to recognize a person. Well, you're putting a lot of time and energy into planning an event, and people are blocking off their calendar to be there. It kind of takes on a life of its own sometimes. And in this book, I don't remember which person it was early on in the book. They were making a big commotion, with the celebration and stuff. I think they were blowing some horns and cheering, maybe throwing confetti or something. Just a surprise pop-up birthday recognition, just with whoever's in the office, nothing scheduled and planned. Maybe you got cupcakes, just catch the person in their office, coworkers, blow horns, sing happy birthday, throw some confetti, and have a few cupcakes. It doesn't have to be planned and orchestrated out to the 9th degree, but it can still be fun recognition.
We do something I think is really powerful. I appreciate it, and a lot of our other staff appreciate it. We have a weekly newsletter that comes out, but all of us, every single 250 plus staff member, you all have the opportunity to send comments and encourage those to go into this newsletter. What happens so often is we'll have a staff member who works on something in the community or for a patron that just really goes above and beyond and just really amazing problem solving or otherwise. And so often that staff member isn't here when that patron or partner comes in to tell us how amazing they are. So we use that newsletter as an opportunity to kind of celebrate them and share. And it's really fun sometimes as a surprise surprised because the person often gets to read it when the newsletter comes out, and then they realize, oh, so-and-so came in and mentioned how phenomenal you are and how much they appreciate your help. And I just know that that's really, that makes us all feel really good. And it's that nice reminder that you may not hear it in that moment when you're helping that person, but you made a big impact, and then you find out later that it was a really huge thing.
Yes.
You know, like for instance, I had a staff member who really helped a family that had just gone through a really difficult period. And the biggest thing was that he dealt with the situation with such sensitivity, and just really made the family feel like they were so welcome here, and like he was going to do everything he could to keep them as lifelong patrons. And you know, when they contacted me and shared that, you know, that was so nice for me to be able to put that out there in that newsletter, because it meant a lot to that family. They even had said that they were dealing with a lot of things with lots of other agencies and weren't getting that same level of support and sensitivity, and it meant a lot to them. So, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah. I think one of the items I wrote here under 10 was just about the change that you can make in your own organization. That the book kind of drove home one primary point for me, or one underlying message, and that is that it's all about the people. And people need to know that they're valued. So however you do that, it might vary from place to place, but helping employees and your coworkers and people know that they are valued. That's a pretty high task, right? More difficult than it sounds. But there's some great examples in the book. What is one new way that you're going to practice recognition after reading this book, either in your professional or personal life? What's one new way you're going to practice recognition?
I think being as specific as possible sometimes with the recognition. You know, I think, you know, thank yous are great, and thank you cards are great, and checking in with folks and things. Today's going really great, you've done this and this, but I think sometimes just really, really remembering to really watch out for those very, very specific things. Maybe it's just that they've been working on a partnership with a project, and you found out that they just got that to move forward just a little bit more, you know, just a very detailed thing, you know. And so I think that's one of the big ones for me. Some of my coworkers I don't work in the same building with, and I don't get to see them very often. So I think that was a good reminder to me, like when I see them at that monthly meeting, like try to remember that I found out they had that great thing that happened in that project, and remember to say it. You know, because sometimes you end that meeting, you go back to your office place and you think, oh, I forgot to mention to David that so-and-so told me this is going forward, and that's great. You know, it's hard to remember to do that sometimes, because you get so caught up in your, I'm going to the meeting and I have to get X, Y, and Z done, and you totally forget that you wanted to do that. So if you have to write it down in a Post-it note, I might do that. Put it in my purse on the Post-it note. Don't forget, you know, mention to David before the end of this meeting how you heard about such and such. It was great, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe that sounds silly to have to write it down, but if that's what gets it done, then, you know.
That's specific to the person.
Yeah.
Thanks. Amy, can I put you on the spot? What about you?
Absolutely. So I have two ideas that came from reading the book. The first one was very much in line with what Erin said, is being specific about recognizing someone and remembering to do it when you see them next. But for me, it is finding opportunities, looking for those opportunities if they just aren't presenting themselves. So I have to say this because it's super funny, and I specifically did it. I was looking for a way to, you know, think about people in unconventional ways that aren't so serious and a bit of fun. And at our last regional meeting, David wore a Christmas shirt to our meeting.
Yes, I did.
And it just so happened that you got pulled up in front, and you received recognition. And so that was a fun time for me to take a picture of you in your Christmas shirt and just send it back to you and say, hey, this was really great for you.
Yeah, and you sent me a copy of the picture that sure said, don't stop believing on it. Had big picture Santa Claus.
Yeah, and so ways that I can think about it unconventionally where it's not so serious,
yes,
but it's kind of a spur of the moment thing, but that's now going to be remembered in pictures.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
We can use that in the future.
Yes, that picture may show up in the future. Yes. You know, finding those opportunities, and you both have alluded to that. So many times that things happen and maybe we think, oh, that's a good job. And then we kind of, you move on. I mean, I do that all the time. I know I do.
Person you totally forget. Or maybe it's like in our case, sometimes I know of folks who are working on some projects behind the scenes that maybe in general, a lot of our folks just aren't, they just don't know about those things. And so that's why it's really important, because I'm thinking these folks don't even know that they're working on that. Like, somebody needs to be there going, hey, that's great.
And those guiding principles that are in the book and on the discussion guide that we have, I think lay a great foundation for that, and for some ways on how to do that. If people, one of those guiding principles is people won't care about you if you don't care about them. The best way to show people you care is to listen. A great idea can come from anywhere. Recognize great work and great ideas whenever and wherever you see them. So I have an example of that, actually. Because we're talking about recognition in this book, we want to be sure we give a good example of that, right? So I've got a hint over here. And this is a bamboo plant, actually. And so here's the recognition. I have a coworker who I've heard her describe herself as having somewhat of a brown thumb before. But I also know this about this person. She really enjoys Japanese culture. Her son has gone to Japan, spent a summer there. I know she spent time there on an exchange and stuff. So I thought bonsai tree or bamboo, to recognize her. And so that's what this is. This is for Amy Patillo, recognizing Amy. We've got a label here. I just want to say what it says, since I'm embarrassing her publicly. Actually, I'm recognizing her publicly, not embarrassing her. In recognition of being an innovative team member who signed the first programming contract with the city of Springfield in over a decade to help generate revenue for the Greene County Extension Office. It's a pretty big deal. She may not feel like it's a big deal, but I think it's a big deal because it's easily been over a decade since we've had any sort of programming contract with the city of Springfield. So it's personalized, because I know she likes Japanese things. It takes very little care. All she has to do is pour a little water in this bamboo and it's going to grow. And she doesn't really even need sunlight for this, so it'll work great in her office. It's heavy. It can be a paperweight if she needs it to be. And just a reminder and a chance to say, Amy Patillo, thank you. Great job. So excited for you and that program that you have pulled off.
Thank you, David. I had no idea it was me. I'm so thrilled. Thank you, David.
And it requires less care than a bonsai tree.
It's a perfect gift.
And if it dies, you're still an amazing
Yeah.
Oh, that's so special. Thank you.
And sure, we just keep some water in it. Just, like filled up with water to the top. And when you get to where it's going to stay permanently, and then, it'll, over time, when it'll dry, fill it up again. So
awesome. Thank you.
We'll talk about your bamboo tree from now on for years to come. But just taking some time to recognize people and trying to remember things that are important to them. That's part of those principles. And make it fun. Make recognition a catalyst for results. Trying to reward things that are not just like longevity. You've been here a long time. That may or may not be a good thing, So recognize things that are a catalyst for results, like signing a new contract for a program and it's generating revenue. Those are good. Make it personal when you can. That recognition is universal. That giving you recognition is a privilege, that honoring others is a reward unto itself, and say thank you every chance you get. Those guiding principles are on the discussion guide on our website, and they're on our little handout here. For those that are here in person, anything to add about those guiding principles for Oh Great One?
I think they're all great, and I think, like you said, I want to keep a copy of it handy in my office so I can kind of keep going back to them, because some of them I felt confident in, and other ones, like Amy said, I want to work on a little bit. I think I want to incorporate a little bit more fun in mine. Very formal, thank you notes, and those are fun too. But I think a little bit more fun, and the really extra personal touch, like you did here with the Japanese influenced things. I think that's even better. Even
in the book, the examples they gave were just, a lot of them were silly and fun. The clucking chicken and the old bird. And in fact, I know from the other book we have, Taking People With You, that we're beginning a book study on in this month from Novak, that when he was with Yum Brands, their main recognition thing was a rubber chicken.
Yes.
And the celebrated rubber chicken.
I got a rubber chicken once from one of my mentors in the library district, who is also a wonderful children's manager. I was a blossoming children's librarian and going to library school, and I believe it was when I was accepted to library school. She had always, as a storyteller, in her bag of goodies, with kids, had a rubber chicken, and his name was Kevin.
Kevin the rubber chicken, yeah.
And I just always admired Kevin, and I would joke about how someday when I was a real librarian, I wanted to have a Kevin. So that's what she gave me. She got me a rubber chicken, and I named him Stu. May not be very
Stu the rubber chicken.
It was so personal. It meant so much to me, and I had Stu for many, many years in my emergency traveling story time bag. But it meant so much to me that even though at that point I had forgotten that I always wanted that rubber chicken, she had always remembered after several years that I had wanted that. And so I think of all the congratulations and everything like that, all that, it was the rubber chicken that meant so much to me. It's really cool. I was surprised that she had remembered that.
Yeah, she'd remembered, and it was personalized to you.
And stuff like that. Oh yeah, we can just do that.
Yes, those are good examples. Amy, were you getting ready to share something also?
I was not.
Oh, okay. I thought you were getting ready to jump in about the guiding principles. Well, if you've, I think that wraps up our hour here. If you've not read Oh Great One, would recommend getting a copy or reading it on Hoopla or Amazon or Audible or something, or get a copy from your library. Of course, the best library system I know of, the Greene County Library System, and read it. It's a great quick read, and it's impactful, I think, and great lessons for all of us. And so it sounds like we'll all be trying to use some of the principles we've learned where we're at, and hoping that others will too. So that wraps up our book discussion. Thank you for joining us online. Looks like we've had 5 or 6 join us online today, so thank you for doing that. And for those that were here in person, see you later.